The Massachusetts Bay Charter was originally an English-based company that traded in New England and was also responsible for the settlement of what is now the Greater Boston area. Causes of settlement. At the time of the Mass Bay Charter, England was full of political and religious turmoil caused by rising democracy and the English monarchy. In 1629, Charles I disbanded Parliament, allowing him to rule without any checks or balances for 11 years. On his own, Charles I made England increasingly fanatic and intolerant of non-Protestant beliefs. The Mass Bay Charter was a contract signed between the British officials and a group of Puritan leaders, Massachusetts Bay Colony, that gave them permission to trade and colonize in New England. Puritans in England had been subject to harsh religious persecution. Some were imprisoned or held out of high office jobs because of their failure to conform to Protestant beliefs. Because of the persecution they faced, they had to lie about their religion to get their charter from the British. The goal was to create a colony where they could live freely without religious persecution. The charter gave them the protection to run businesses freely as well. This led to salutary neglect. England did not watch over or regulate the colony. This meant that they could create their own rules and regulations for their own colony.
King Charles I granted the Massachusetts Bay Company a charter in 1629, authorizing them to trade and colonize in New England. The charter included the area between the Charles and Merrimack Rivers. In 1630, Governor John Winthrop and Deputy Governor Thomas Dudley led a group of 1,000 Puritans from England to settle in Massachusetts. The colonists made their first stop in Salem, then later settled on the Shawmut Peninsula of Massachusetts Bay, which is currently known as Boston. In the first year of settlement, around 200 people died, but as conditions got better, new settlers came. Also, around 200 settlers returned to England in 1631. The boundaries stated in the Mass Bay Charter contract only provided a northern and southern border, so technically it included all land west to Oregon. Once there, the company started settling surrounding communities. Management was supposed to remain in England, however the Puritans decided they would bring the charter with them to New England in order to take control of management. The Mass Bay Company originated as a commercial company trading in New England and later established a commonwealth. The Puritans developed a self-government and set up communities including Boston, Charleston, Dorchester, Lynn, Medford, Roxbury, and Watertown.
Once the settlement in Boston started to stabilize, the remaining stockholders of the company all moved to Boston. This effectively moved the Massachusetts Bay Charter out of England. The Puritans also analyzed the wording for the charter's contract and determined that the contract gave them the right to build a local government in Massachusetts with only slight dependence on England's government. With the questionably legal ground set, the Puritans started building their government. Instead of land ownership being grounds for voting, in Boston and surrounding settlements, membership in the Puritan Church was the requirement. This made the government a theocracy because only Puritans could be active in government. While the Puritans came to Massachusetts for religious freedom, they did not grant that freedom to anyone else in their newfound colony. Anabaptists, Quakers, and any others with differing religious views were banished. Even with the extreme intolerance, by the mid-1640s, there were over 20,000 people living in the Massachusetts colony. In 1684, the tension between England and the Mass Bay Charter boiled over, and the English government nullified the charter's contract. In 1691, a new royal government was given control under a new charter. This new charter combined Plymouth, Maine, and the Mass Bay Charter into one colony. Even though the Mass Bay Charter lost control of the government, it had already left its mark on Massachusetts and laid the groundwork for the future Commonwealth. The impact that the Mass Bay Charter had on the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can easily be seen through the state seal, which is an updated version of the original seal of the Mass Bay Charter.